Hello, and welcome to the Awakened Winners podcast. I am your host, Loida Love, and today I'm excited to share a conversation with Jessica. We are naming this conversation Wired for Distraction, and I absolutely love that title, Jessica. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to just share Jessica's brief bio and then we'll dive into our conversation. Jessica is an incredible woman that juggles a lot and makes it look easy. She's been married for 8 years and has two beautiful children. She's passionate about her babies, fur babies included. She also loves nature because being out in the sunshine makes her happy. Hey, I love it. It sounds so similar to me. Give me some sun and I take it.
Soak it
So
all in.
yeah. So I know that originally the reason why I invited you to come on the Awakened Winners podcast was because we spoke about ADD and it just seems like such an amazing topic to speak about that not everybody does, but a lot of people have the experience of ADD.
Yeah, I think so many people have ADD, whether they're diagnosed or not. I think so many people are affected by it.
Yeah, I haven't been diagnosed, but sometimes I'm like, I think so, girl. I think so. Um, so tell me a little more about what prompted you to even check to find out if you had ADD because you're diagnosed, right?
Yeah, so I am diagnosed with ADD, but I was not until my adult life. So I was kind of always a very just distracted. I could not possibly sit and focus on one thing at a time. My brain will inside just make a mental list of all of the things that I could and should and might want to do at any given time, even while I'm doing an actual task. So I have a constant just voice in my head of all of the things. That's just what I could do, want to do, whatever's popping into my brain at the moment. And I went through regular school and college and made it all through fine. I guess I learned ways to cope with it. And then in my adult life, just trying to work and have kids as in the house as a distraction. And my husband would be the one to kind of point out to me, like, you'll walk through the kitchen and you'll start doing something and you'll stop and walk away from it and it's all still there, and you walk away and start something else, and then you leave that and you start to do something else, and then there's a pile of this over there, and he's like, do you know that you do that? So, and he is also has ADD and is diagnosed. So I started to kind of do some tests and talk to a doctor, and I was officially diagnosed with ADD. It makes 100% sense what happens in my brain all the time.
So is it like there's a person outside of you constantly talking with?
Yeah, it's a constant chatter. And something that I've heard from people who do not have ADD is their head is quiet and there's a silence that happens. And I do not have a silence. I have a person that's constantly like, we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need to do this. And remember that happens in 2 weeks. And remember this. And I wonder what it would be like to be quiet.
And what kind of things have you figured out to support you through this?
So
journey?
I have attempted medication. It's not necessarily my favorite because it is a bit of a stimulant. Um, so I am big into lists, whether they are for good or for bad. I am not 100% sure, but I'm still kind of working through what the best. One thing that I do know is I cannot put a distraction in front of me. So if I know that something will distract me, and it's a task that maybe I think I want to do and it could be done this week, but maybe doesn't have to be, I can't physically have that distraction right there. Like we talked a few weeks ago about my mulch and how I went and bought all the mulch and I sat it outside. And that was my distraction for days, that mulch was sitting there and I wanted to go outside and do it, but I had actual things that I needed to do that were far more important and timely. So,
So can you share about the mulch for the people that weren't on the
yeah.
call?
So, um, we obviously mulch like many people do in the spring. And I had a huge work project going on. My husband was traveling for work. I was being single mom to two kids who are super active and in sports and doing a million things, and have my two dogs. I decided in the middle of all of that that I my inside said I had to go and purchase mulch, multiple trips back and forth to Lowe's, bring it back and stack it outside, for me to lay. I stacked it, I don't know why, right outside of my window where I work. So then, as I was trying to complete all of the tasks that I physically had to do for work, I could just see the mulch out of the corner of my eye. And it was my distraction for days and days where I was like, I could just cut out for a few minutes and go lay some mulch. But I could come back and then I'll do some of this.
Right.
Maybe I'll just go and lay it all
And,
and then I'll come back.
and wasn't it that you saw a discount somewhere or something?
Yeah, it was on sale. It was on sale at Lowe's. So I felt like I had to get it on discount because I was going to save maybe $30
Right.
to get it. So
So, so
they
this
sell
is
them all the time. It's not like I had to do it.
so this is something you don't have to do, but you had so much to do already at home and with work. All
Yeah,
of a sudden, something sparks in your mind that you should get mulch, even though
right,
it's not something that's an emergency or doesn't need to happen right away.
right.
And it just keeps playing in your mind, like, no, like you should really get it until you give in.
Until I give in to it. Yeah. It's like my little devil will sit there and be like, "No, no, you should do that. We really need to do that." And it almost like eats at me until I give into it. It's like a craving that I can't get away from.
And then do you feel excited when you like
Yeah.
I'm curious about the parts of you.
Yeah. Yep. Like even like fitting it in and being like, okay, well, I have to drive there. It's almost an excitement of like, okay, well, I got a little bit more. I squeezed just a little bit more into today. And then, it'll be there. And it is an excitement. It's definitely like an adrenaline type of thing that gets me.
Mhm. And the adrenaline comes from because you said
Yeah.
I squeezed just a little bit more into today. Does
Yeah.
where what does what's fulfilling? Like what's giving you the adrenaline?
It's checking it off the list. It's taking just one more thing. Like I have just a constant to-do list. I even have one today. I felt like we needed to clean the hallway closet this morning and like what else can I get into today before like I work and pick up my kids and do this and like, it's just how much more can I stick in to make
Mm,
myself a little bit busier?
yeah. Yeah, I find this fascinating and interesting. I'm so glad we're talking about this because I also hear like you know that I wrote a book. And
Mhm.
I'm really obsessed with my book and the title of my book. I feel like it's everything. Like any conversation that I'm having, I'm just like, I so hear that. I
Yeah.
so hear it. I share my book in every podcast. So I'm just gonna take the time real quick to give myself a shout out and give my book a shout out. So my book title is The Awakened Winners We Already Won. And this is my beautiful son. And this is me, of course. But what I hear is that the concept of the awakened winner, but not yet awakened. Because
No.
when we're awakened to the winner, we don't have to create races in order to prove that we won.
Right.
But it sounds like there's
I'm
a
not awakened yet. I'm still trying to win.
and that's just a part of you, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
a part of you is you haven't really maybe tapped into that part of you 100%, but there's a part of you that is. But the
Yeah.
part of you that you're more identified with is the part of you that's not. So it's like, and it sounds like it could be more than one part, right? Like there's a part that's like, okay, I'm going to create a list. And then there's a part that manipulates and talks you into things.
But
And then
it adds on to that list. Like, it's my little thing that's like, "Oh, these are the normal things you need to do. But if you could throw this curveball in there too, that would be great."
I love the thought of even mischievous.
Uh-huh. It is. It is. Absolutely.
And I love even just watching you is like I can see you embody that part of you, like you're embodied, like that's it's there's no separation between you and this part of you right now. Like no, this is this is who I am.
It is me. It is me. And I should not identify as much with ADD, because I do use it as an excuse an awful lot. And, I'll drop things on the counter, and my husband's like, "You were right next to the trash can. Why?" And I'm like, "Well, I have ADD. So, you know, I can't sit still for that long." Like,
Yeah.
why are you doing three other things while we're trying to watch a show? Because I have ADD. That's because.
Yes, yes, I love that because I remember we were talking about that and me having this same experience with somebody that I know that
Mhm.
has a disability now and constantly says, "Don't you remember I'm disabled?"
Yeah.
Like about everything. And it's not to put her down or say that she doesn't, but sometimes it will be legit because she wanted me to get her something to drink or something like that.
Yeah.
She's like, "Don't you know I'm disabled?" But she can walk and she's fine.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
like,
I
now
will
you're
use it as a crutch
yes.
when it's useful to me.
That's why I felt like the mischievousness. Like
Yeah.
one of the things that I noticed about my son was born with Down syndrome, for those that don't know. And one of the things that I noticed a long time ago is that, so I'm just going to give you guys a backstory. So I would go to my mom's house with my son, and we would be eating dinner. And my mom, even though my son could eat by himself at this time, he was probably like 4 or 5 years old, he could eat by himself at this time. My mom would take the spoon and feed him. And I started to tell my mom, "Mom, you don't have to feed him anymore. He knows how to feed himself." And she's like, "Oh, is that, I feel like I want to help him." And I'm like, "Yeah, but you want him to be independent, right?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Well, I want you to stop feeding him." So she stopped feeding him that day. And then we came back for a visit one day, and there was dinner. My mom served. My son sat, let's say here, my mom sat to the left of him. And what I noticed happen immediately was that my son took his plate and pushed it over to my mom. And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, if you're going to do it for me,
Mhm.
sure.
Sure.
You're going to spoon feed me?
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I'm disabled and I don't know how to feed myself. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yep.
The manipulation. I was like, "Oh." So I knew then and there is that, like, we can if we cater to that, we enable people to stay the same as we like work around, or even we enable ourselves, right? Because if I like, let's say I start saying I have ADD, then I'll start just leaving things and being like, oh, it's just that. And then it piles up and it's like, it was my ADD.
See, my husband will test me with it, and he'll, for a while, especially when I was pregnant, I would leave stuff everywhere, and he would enable me, and he would follow behind. And then when our kids got a little bit older and they would leave stuff and I would constantly be behind them picking up, but I would leave my own things. He was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Enough with your excuse. You're okay. You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up after the children all the time. You can pick that up. And he's like, I could pick it up too. Easily. I could pick up your piece of trash. But he was like, he tested me to see how it would go. And he's like, unless that is what's on top of your list and what your mind has decided that it wants to do right that second, you won't do it. You won't. He's like, but then you'll be like, I'm going to clean the kitchen because that's on my list, and I will clean like to pristine. And he's like, I tested you to see how long you would let things sit. And he's like, it really wasn't until it was on your list of things to do in your brain that you would go through and pick up your own things.
I love it. I love it. And I'm curious just about you as a child.
Oh, yeah. Scattered, very scattered all the time. And I did okay in school. But I was never one to like sit and study and do like things. I think I did well because certain things came easy. But if I had to sit and study, I never really did homework or any of that. And I would kind of be like, I just don't. I would use it as an excuse then, even not really knowing that I had ADD. I would be like, I just can't sit still that long. I'm not going to do that work. That's too much. I'm not going to do that. And it would make my siblings crazy, crazy, crazy. I was messy as a kid, very, very messy. And then we leave things everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have a mother that picked up after me all the time.
Yes, the enabling.
Yep.
Everything. I swear that when I finally moved out of my mom's home, it was a struggle to do my bed and clean my room because it was like somebody's gonna come in here and do it for me.
She did it forever. I didn't really ever contemplate how all of that got done, and my laundry was clean and folded until I moved out on my own and was like, oh, someone has to clean that bathroom, huh? Who's gonna do that? But even as a kid, like I will get lost now in my own head. And I'll be walking, like going, I have to go to the bathroom, and I'll walk halfway there and be like, what was I gonna do? And I'm lost, just lost. And then I'll come back. But it would happen as a kid. I would be doing something and then just completely forget, just be lost for a few minutes. And it'll just like freeze. Like I was doing something. What was it again? Lost.
I appreciate you sharing that because the conversation before, well, a couple conversations ago, for the podcast, I spoke to a woman that had a brain injury. I've spoken to a couple women that have had brain injuries on my podcast so far. But this particular woman, I asked her, what's her struggle? Because brain injury, from what I know, you get short-term memory loss. It's quite a process. So I'm like, what is your struggle? And so she started to explain her struggle. And then I could see her struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like it's happening right now. And she's like, I usually am never at a loss of words. She's like, And I was like, but you lost it. Like you lost what the question was, you lost what you were answering. It was like wiped out for like I can see it. And I was like, I appreciate that I asked you to tell me what your struggle is and you decided to show me
Yeah.
and
Yep.
to show the audience because people are gonna get to see her struggle. Like legit, it was just like she's trying her best, but she like
She
cannot.
can't get back there.
And I told her, I was like, and I know that this is so relatable because maybe not to the same capacity.
Yeah.
It happens to most humans, right? We go into the kitchen, we're like, what
What?
did I come here for?
Right. I was doing something. There was something. I was here for something. What?
Yeah, it's a legit struggle for most people.
Yeah.
But maybe not to the same extent. And so I was just curious also about your childhood, about you when you were a kid. You were mentioning certain things, and I like what I heard that you developed a distraction mechanism. And I'm curious about what, if you can name what you were distracting yourself from, what would that be?
Probably just the like chaos. Some chaos at home, some that maybe I just didn't feel like dealing with at the moment. Um, at school, it was when I would get lost and not pay attention, it was because I just didn't really like it, or I wasn't super good at some things. Like I've never been good at math. So I would basically get lost while I was doing it or in class. And I would use this as a way to just kind of float and not pay attention to what I was doing and not have to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I could use my brain and my distractions to just be like, I'll go somewhere else in my head for a bit while you're teaching me something.
I love it because it feels like a superpower, right? Like I can leave the room, although then it becomes an issue for us, right? Because I can relate in some ways, right? Because then we don't get the learning that we need.
No.
Right? So it's like I'm struggling with math, so I'm gonna disappear.
Yep.
This is a class that will help me learn math, but I'm gone.
I'm
And then
gone.
when I come back, I'm going to be less aware of the math. But yeah, I disappeared. Wasn't that amazing? I did magic.
Uh-huh. I disappeared for 30 minutes while you tried to teach me multiplication tables. And now I'm back and you're asking me a question about it. But I wasn't here.
Yes. Yes. Because math, like I'm listening to him like you are me and I am you. Math wasn't my greatest, although when I was pregnant, I passed algebra, which I was pretty impressed with myself.
Good
Which,
job.
which to me was like, you know what? When I'm really focused and something matters to me, I will make it happen.
Yeah.
Yes. But because I was like not focused, I didn't really matter to me. It was just like, I don't know it. And I mean, I don't know how I was thinking when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't thinking, "Oh, I'm never going to use this." Like, I'm not thinking like that. Maybe it was that it was just too challenging for me, or maybe just my mind was legit distracted, and it was like I can't get it even if I'm in the room because nothing is sticking. It's
Yeah.
not sticking to my brain because I don't know why. And
I
it
still
reminds.
remember being in like fourth grade where they like taught multiplication and sitting in that class. And she had a bulletin board of like multiplication tables, and you had to stack up ice cream cones.
Mm,
And I remember like trying to do it because it was something you had to do in front of everybody, and I didn't want to be embarrassed by it. So I tried to sit there and like actually learn, and I couldn't. Like my brain did not absorb what she was trying to teach. And
mm,
I basically, as a defense, I'm sure in that was just like, well, I'll just I'll just tone it out. And I floated somewhere else and probably sat there and colored on my notebook or whatever was more entertaining to me at the moment, but
mm.
still couldn't do multiplication in my head today if I tried.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I remember that bulletin board with the multiplication tables on it and the ice cream cones still like it was yesterday. It could be hanging on my wall next to my desk.
Yeah. And I love that you brought defense in because it's like the avoidance of being embarrassed,
Yeah.
right? And that, that ADD can come from something we created so long ago
Mhm.
that we stayed identified with for so long,
Right.
even if it doesn't serve anymore. Like it's like I, you got it now. Like I got it. Like even if I get embarrassed, I got it.
Right.
But like so interwoven together that you may not know which one is which. It's like no, because it's been such a part of me that it's like I'm
Mm.
entangled with this part. And I was also going to mention, it reminds me also of when I read a book. Like sometimes I'll read a book and I could read a whole page and then be like, I
It's
don't know
gone.
what I read.
I wasn't
I,
there.
I know I went through the words,
Mhm.
but I have no idea what I read.
Mm-mm.
It's
No, that
like,
happens often. Often. Yeah. I could sit there and I'm here and I'm doing it and then be like, what in the world did I just look at? I did not absorb a single thing. Couldn't
mm,
tell you. And it hit like just one page didn't stick,
yeah,
even if I'm trying. But on the flip side of it, I could become hyper focused on something and be like, I'm gonna sit and read 100 pages and know everything that happened.
right.
So it's weird how the brain works, and it definitely is. Maybe that was more interesting, or I was more engaged at that moment, or my mental list of chatter was quieter that day. But I definitely can hyper focus and absorb a lot. I do it for work constantly. I have
Mm,
so much to do at work all the time, and I can get like almost in a zone where I'm like, okay, all of these things are going to happen, and I will crush a million things at work and do them really well. So my brain can flip back and forth between lost and kind of in la la land, or this hyper focused woman who does a million things and does them really, really well.
I love it. I love it because I was just thinking, um, the opposite of distraction mechanism is attention mechanism. And if I've conditioned my brain to distract, that's what it's going to automatically do. Like it's wired to distract.
Yep.
And if I practice something new, which is attention, right? Like that. All right, I notice I get distracted, but I hyper focus, as you said, right? And you practice the being able to absorb, like what. So it's no different than the wolf story, and I looked it up to share it. And it says, once upon a time, there was a grandfather who told his grandson,
We're good now.
there are two wolves.
There are two wolves next to me.
So I found it and I'm just going to read it real quick. It says, once upon a time, there was a grandfather who told his grandson, there are two wolves inside of me. One wolf is good and altruistic, generous and kind. The other wolf is mean, greedy, violent, and angry. The two wolves are in a constant fight within me. The grandson with wide eyes says, but which one will win, Grandpa? And the grandfather says, the wolf you feed.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
to me, that is
for sure.
so powerful. Like,
Yeah.
what parts of us do we feed the most? What parts of us do we say, this is the truth, this is who I am, and this is how I function, and there's no, immovable.
Yeah. Had I said no to the mulch, the wolf that wanted me to get mulch, I would have been more focused on all of the things I needed to actually do, I
Mhm.
have to very consciously say no to that wolf
Yes.
often.
Yes. 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 I love this because I didn't know where our conversation was going to go. I knew I wanted you on because I think, like I said, this is such an important conversation that not many are having. Um, I do want you to share a little bit about how it is in your day to day, just like on a regular Jessica day where ADD seems to be like full force. What is your day like?
Chaotic. Chaotic. It's a lot of, if ADD is fully in control, it's a lot of me bouncing from thing to thing and probably not accomplishing one fully ever, because I will start working, but then this over here tells me I should do it. So I'll go and start with that for a little bit, but then I'll remember I should go back to work and I'll go back. So it's chaotic. It's chaotic for sure. And then we throw the kids in who are chaos, and I have to consciously not become the chaos with them.
Mhm. Yes. And is there anything that's helpful for you to function? Like if you were going to start your day, is there anything that helps you start your day better?
If I am intentional in the morning, I have recently learned if I meditate and I take the time for myself, even if it's 15 or 20 minutes, and that's the first thing I do is just have calm and some meditation, I am far better throughout the day. And it's less chaotic. I'm able to say no to the distractions a lot more. I
Mm.
won't say no to all of them because there's still the little excitement in it, but I will say no to far more at least.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like eventually cuz once you stop getting what I call a high, right? Like a high from whatever it is that you're doing that gives you that rush, like you just it's less and less and less. It it so reminds me too of addiction,
Mhm.
right? Like people get addicted to many things. Like people think that addiction is just like only drugs, but actually there's so many things we can get addicted to that give us some type of pleasure, and we keep doing it and keep doing it. Sometimes we don't know why we keep doing it. It's because we're addicted. It's giving us a rush.
Yep.
It's
Just
feeding.
doing one more thing and feeding one more thing into the day is a rush for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and feeding that wolf that's like it's like there's a part of you in the background. It's like, I got her.
I got her to go and do that. She didn't need to, but there she goes. Yep.
Oh my gosh. And I love that the part of you enjoys that part too. Like
Oh,
you
yeah. Yep.
you got me, and I did
You
do
got
it.
me. You got me. And it was fun to do that. It was. It was fun. I know. But now I have to come back to reality and do the things that I actually had to do today that I ignored.
It's a whole game, and I love witnessing you be immersed in that part of you that gets that thrill, because I can feel that it's young, but I also feel like it's fun. Like it's like I don't care, like it's just this is what it is, and
It's
this
fine.
is
It'll all be fine. There's part of me that definitely enjoys the chaos. It definitely does.
well
Maybe it's been having it for so long, but there's something in me that loves a little chaos.
that well, I love it because that to me is what consciousness is to be aware of something. Then you can do something about it, even if you love it, right? It's like I know that that's what it is.
Mhm.
I'm not
Yep.
being run by this part of me. I just enjoy it sometimes. Sometimes I like to add it into my
Yeah.
in my coffee cup.
Sometimes it's just a little sprinkle. There are days where I'm like, "Okay, no, no. We need to actually focus today. No. To all of the other things, no."
Oh my gosh, I love it. All right. So as we're merging out, I am curious. I always ask people that are on my show. First of all, is there anything else you wanted to add before we go?
No, I think that's it. We've
Okay,
talked
perfect.
about my distracted brain.
I love it, and I love the freaking title. The title was Everything Wired for Distraction. And I love that title too because it's wired. So
Yeah.
if you're wired, I also feel like for some people you can be rewired unless you're so like you're like, okay, no, this is how I'm wired and that's it. Like maybe you can be rewired or you can do something to tweak. If we're like computers, then maybe we can tweak something and shift it. Doesn't mean that we're going to change ourselves completely because maybe there's part of us that's really wired this
Yeah.
way. But maybe we can strengthen the other wolf,
Yeah. We're
right?
strengthening the other wolf at this point too.
Yes.
The one that knows we need to do things.
Yes. Yes, and the question I was going to ask, the question I ask every person that comes to the show is if there's one message that you would leave the audience, and anything that you feel would be helpful, what would it be?
Hmm. That just because I'm a little bit chaotic, my brain maybe isn't quiet all the time, doesn't mean that I can't thrive and completely crush life in all its ways.
Girl, girl, because you are crushing it. This woman is a businesswoman. She's extraordinary. Like I love the bio. Jessica is an incredible woman that juggles a lot and makes it look easy. Like empowered woman, anyone? Empowered woman, anyone? I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. You're amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. So awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.